Hello, I'm Helen, a 29-year-old who recently tied the knot. My husband, Bobby, who is 31, works as an office employee. Our story takes a turn when, without prior discussion, Bobby decides to have his younger sister, Doris, move into our newly acquired home. This home, valued at $500,000, was specially designed for us as newlyweds. From the time of our engagement, Bobby and I were deeply involved in every detail of our home's design and furnishings, eagerly planning to settle in right after our marriage. Upon moving in, I was taken aback by the unexpectedly large quantity of Bobby's belongings. Puzzled, I questioned him. "Bobby, is there enough room for all this stuff? It seems like quite a lot." He casually dropped a bombshell. "Oh, did I not mention? Doris is moving in with us." I was utterly surprised and asked, "Why would Doris move in now? We just got married." Bobby dismissed my concerns, asserting, "It's no big deal. Doris's family too, and it shouldn't be a problem for all of us to live together. She wants to stay in the new house." I objected, stressing the lack of prior discussion, but Bobby ignored my concerns and continued unpacking. His attitude escalated to the point where he exclaimed, "If you don't like it, you can leave. I've already decided Doris is staying, so stop complaining." I was far from convinced and threatened to call my brother for support. Fearing the confrontation, Bobby quickly backtracked. "Wait, don't call him. Look, Doris won't be here forever. She just needs a place to stay until she finds a job and her place. Can you understand that?" Reluctantly, I agreed, and when I proposed, "Okay, but can Doris stay in the guest room?" Bobby hesitated and then muttered, yeah," though his uncertainty was apparent. After moving Doris's belongings into the guest room, following a chaotic day of unpacking, we were celebrating our move with a toast when the doorbell rang late at night. Curious, Bobby rushed to answer. To my dismay, it was Doris. As I lingered in the kitchen, dressed for bed and not in the mood for visitors, Bobby called out, "Hey Helen, Doris is here." Trying to mask my annoyance, I greeted her. "Welcome, Doris. What brings you here so late?" Doris boldly replied, "Can't I come home whenever I want now? Show me my spacious room, big bro." She followed Bobby to the guest room, only to immediately protest. "This isn't the right room. You said it was larger, didn't you?" She then stormed upstairs, searching for another room. Following them, I was horrified to find Doris claiming my designated workroom as hers. I couldn't contain my frustration and raised my voice. "This is my workroom. It can't be your room." Yet, Bobby interjected, "Why not make this Doris's room?" The situation was spiraling, challenging the very sanctity of our new marriage and home. I held my ground firmly. No way. Then, trying to find a compromise, I suggested the room next door, Bobby's designated workspace, which was also quite spacious. I motioned toward it, but Bobby was visibly distressed. "Not that room. I've been looking forward to using it. I even picked out the wallpaper myself. No way." The only alternative seemed to be the future children's room, which we were currently using as a guest room. Doris, still dissatisfied, snapped at me. "You're quite insolent, aren't you? Not listening to the head of the household. Pretty cheeky for someone who relies on him for meals." Exhausted and disheartened by her accusation, I thought to myself, who's the real freeloader here? I retreated to the living room to continue my solo celebration of our move. From there, I could hear them arguing, but I chose to ignore it until Bobby confronted me, accusing me. "You're always opposing me, acting all high and mighty." He grabbed the wine bottle, took a large gulp, and then shouted, "If you can't listen to me, get out. I'm the head of this household. Don't underestimate me." With that, he stormed off with Doris, even though it was late. Feeling overwhelmed, I decided to call my brother. He answered immediately, sounding upset. "Are you mad, bro? Were you sleeping?" "I'm sorry," I inquired. It turned out I had called during an argument with his wife. He half joked about the timing. "What's up? Did the move go smoothly?" "Sorry, I couldn't be there. It's done, isn't it? Don't you have to talk to your wife? Is it okay to just leave her like this?" As I began sharing the details about Doris moving in from day one and not wanting the guest room, and how my husband and Doris were treating me, my brother expressed concern that I was being treated almost like a servant. I laughed off his worries, asserting confidently, "I'm your sister, right? Me, a servant? If they think they can manage that, let them try." My brother chuckled. "Good point, but call me if anything happens." Our conversation then shifted to his troubles. I was shocked to learn his wife had been seeing other men she met on a dating site and was having an affair. He had found out after she mistakenly sent him a message meant for her lover. Bobby had been suspicious for a while, and after getting proof, he took her phone and sent her back to her parents. He planned to visit her parents' home the next day to discuss everything. We ended our call with a plan to stay in touch, acknowledging that we were both in tough situations. After hanging up, I busied myself with the remaining boxes, waiting for Bobby and Doris to return. They came back late at night, cheerfully drunk, as I continued unpacking. Despite the tension, I braced myself to welcome them. Bobby and Doris approached me with what they thought was a brilliant solution. "Let's move our bedroom to Doris's and we can each sleep in our workrooms. What do you think? It's a good idea, right? Just make sure to clear the room for Doris by tomorrow." I paused before replying. "There's something I need to clarify first. How much will Doris contribute towards groceries and household supplies each month? And she's not planning on staying here forever, right? So, how long does she intend to stay?" Bobby looked uneasy at my questions. "You want money from Doris, who doesn't have a job? Don't worry, I'll cover it with my salary." Doris chimed in with a tone of entitlement. "I'll stay until I'm satisfied. I can't stand my mom's old-fashioned cooking and her nagging at home about laundry and cleaning. Here, I can do what I want without spending a dime. It's perfect. If you don't like it, Helen, why don't you move out?" I snapped back. "Then let's divide the household expenses. I will cover my share with my income. You can use your salary for yourself and Doris." They seemed oddly pleased with this arrangement, even though I added, "And you'll need to take care of your chores." Feeling they weren't taking me seriously, I left a written note about our agreement. The next day, still concerned about my brother, I decided to visit him at his office. He took over as the president of a construction company after our father passed away last year. Surprised to see me, he invited me to speak first. I explained the situation at home and asked if there might be a position for me at his company. "Our secretary is leaving due to her husband's relocation." "It's good timing," he replied, agreeing to hire me. Then he shared his troubling news that left me stunned. His wife was pregnant, but it was clear the child wasn't his. The evidence was on her phone, filled with messages, photos, and videos of her lover, who now wanted to shirk responsibility upon learning of the pregnancy. When I asked if he was considering a divorce, he replied, "It will be tough for the kids, but I see no other option." I advised him to consult with a lawyer for a proper discussion. Returning home, I was haunted by the images and texts of my sister-in-law's affair. Despite knowing her as a loving, family-oriented person, her betrayal felt like losing a close friend. Tears welled up as I processed the shock. Amidst these thoughts, Doris persistently knocked on my door, breaking into my reverie with, "Hey, I'm hungry, can you make something?" Doris's voice echoed through the door, but I was too shocked and drained to respond, so I let her be. Then my phone rang. It was my husband, likely calling from work. Anticipating the direction of the conversation, I chose not to answer. I just wasn't in the mood to talk. Shortly after, I received a text from my brother asking if I could accompany him to a lawyer the following day. I simply replied with an OK sticker and must have drifted off to sleep. I was abruptly awakened by my husband's loud voice. "You didn't even prepare food for Doris and you're sleeping. What's that about?" he roared. Without a word, I just held up a written pledge we had made, signaling him to read it. Realizing the situation, he told Doris, "Let's let her sleep today. She seems off. We can talk about this tomorrow." "I'm not sick, just tired of this," I mumbled, rolling over to sleep again. The next morning, I quietly left the house without waking my husband and headed to my brother's place. He looked like he hadn't slept at all, with bloodshot eyes. Before anything, I helped get his kids ready and took them to kindergarten. During the drive, they shared that their parents had argued and their mom had left the house. Mommy was the bad one. She left us at home and went out. We cried because we were left alone, so Daddy got angry, they said innocently. I reassured them, if you're lonely, call Auntie, okay? Their cheerful yay made it clear they weren't too sad about their mom's absence. After dropping off the children, my brother and I went to see the lawyer. The lawyer confirmed that the evidence on my sister-in-law's phone, photos, videos, and messages, was more than sufficient for a divorce case and to argue for parental rights. After my brother shared his story, I also got a chance to discuss my situation. The lawyer offered some advice, and my brother dropped me back home afterward. He mentioned he'd be gathering the family later to discuss the divorce. If anything happens, give us a call. We're all here for you, he assured as he left. When I walked into the living room, the house was a complete mess. They had attempted to make breakfast, leaving the kitchen greasy and dishes strewn about. The sight was frustrating. I hesitated to clean up after them, debating whether to address the chaos. Just then, Doris appeared. Where did you go without making breakfast? Bobby didn't eat anything and had to go to work hungry. Isn't it unacceptable to abandon household chores as a wife? She confronted me. I responded firmly, you know what? I'm not your maid or servant. Weren't you taught to clean up after yourself as a child? Ignoring her repetitive complaints, I decided not to let her provocations affect me anymore. The situation at home needed a resolution, and I was determined to make sure everyone played their part responsibly. But you're the wife, Doris retorted as I stormed to my room, only to find that my belongings were gone and Doris's items had taken over my space. Shocked and confused, I confronted her in the living room. Did you go into my room? Your stuff is everywhere. What's going on? With a smug look, Doris replied, Oh, I've always loved your room. It fits my neat and cute image perfectly, don't you think? I moved your stuff into the guest room. Fuming, I hurried to the guest room where I found my computer and belongings carelessly tossed aside. The disrespect was palpable, and my anger boiled over. This was beyond tolerable. A burning desire for retribution ignited within me, and I resolved never to let this slide. I planned to confront my husband Bobby the moment he returned home. I'd show him the chaos Doris had created and ask him, Do you want to live like this with Doris and me constantly at odds? Bobby returned unexpectedly early, likely tipped off by Doris. I could hear his heavy footsteps approaching the guest room. It was clear he knew about the switch, and I braced myself for the worst. When Bobby burst through the door, his expression was fierce, with Doris grinning triumphantly by his side. You went against Doris, he accused. Aren't you my wife? Isn't it your job to look after me and your sister-in-law? At that moment, any affection I held for Bobby evaporated. He stood there, not once defending me or acknowledging Doris's invasive behavior. No calls for her to move her stuff back, and no questions about why she was disregarding my personal space. Determined, I challenged him. If this is how it's going to be, I'm inviting my brother over. He's never seen our house. Maybe it's time he does. Despite his usual apprehension about my brother, Bobby's demeanor changed with Doris beside him. Are you sure about that? If you let that thug into our house, I'll kick you out, he threatened confidently. So kick me out, try if you can. I'll call my mother, my brother, and his wife to see this place, I retorted, unflinching. His face hardened as he warned, Do not dare call your family. If you don't like it, then leave. Then Doris interjected, smirking. This is my castle with Bobby. You know you have no right to call anyone here. Even if your family comes, we'll just kick them out. Unfazed, I grabbed my phone. I'll call my brother then. To Bobby and Doris, I added, Perhaps we should live apart. You two can have fun, invite your friends, and party all you want. Sounds like you'd prefer that. Their faces lit up at the idea, and Bobby even suggested, Maybe we should just get divorced already. Fed up with their disrespect and unyielding attitude, I decided to make the call. It was time for my family to see firsthand the situation I was dealing with. As I dialed, the reality of our fractured relationship became starkly clear, but I was ready to take a stand. As Bobby and Doris buzzed with high spirits, thrilled at the prospect of having the house to themselves and thinking of ejecting me, I calmly warned them, All right, but you'll regret this. I'm calling my family now. I reached out to my brother, who responded eagerly, "We've been waiting for this. We're on our way." His readiness to jump into action moved me, showing his anticipation of my call. Within about 25 minutes, my family arrived. Doris, who had previously threatened to kick my family out, turned pale at the sight of my brother. "Oh, Doris, I thought you were going to kick out my family when they arrived," I remarked. She could only shake her head weakly in response. Seeing Doris so subdued, Bobby also seemed to shrink back in fear. My brother, a former judo competitor with a national ranking until a knee injury in college, stood imposingly over 6 feet tall with a buzz cut, now coaching at a local boys' club. My younger brother, also a judo practitioner, mirrored his appearance. They had both been at the wedding, memorable figures in their own right. "Huh, we're getting kicked out by who? Isn't it you guys who are leaving?" My elder brother laughed, to which Doris tried to muster some bravado. "Yeah, my brother is divorcing his useless wife now? Please leave." My younger brother retorted, "What? You guys are the ones leaving, aren't you? This is Helen's house, isn't it? Built with her share of our father's inheritance and in Helen's name." While this unfolded, my mother began tidying up the kitchen and remarked, "Oh dear, what a mess." Then, calling out to my brothers, she said, "Don't drag out the conversation, get to the point already." Taking her cue, my brothers turned to me, instructing, "Another person is coming, let them in when they arrive," while gesturing for Bobby and Doris to sit down. "We have 2 matters to discuss today. The first is that we need you to leave," he told my husband and Doris. When Doris incredulously asked if it was true this house belonged to me, Bobby started to falter. "Well, I was talking to the contractors about the interior and stuff, so I thought it was my house, but maybe it's not. But I'm the head of the household, right?" It was clear he had misconstrued being the head of the household as ownership, without considering the source of the funds. "You know that being the head of the household and being the owner of the house are 2 different things, right?" was the reply, leaving Bobby speechless. However, Doris stubbornly retorted, "I won't leave. Do you know about residency rights? I have rights, so I won't leave if you don't want us here. You leave," glaring defiantly at me. "You seem to have researched this thoroughly, but this isn't a rental property and you're not paying Helen any rent, are you? So residency rights don't apply here," my brother pointed out, as Bobby, sensing the gravity of the situation, began to resist their attempts to dismiss his claims. "But I'm married to Helen, right? I can't just leave. I won't separate," Bobby argued, clinging to his last shred of defense. Just then, the doorbell rang. The guest the brothers had mentioned had probably arrived. I opened the door to find my sister-in-law, my older brother's wife, standing there, tears streaming down her face. Before letting her into the house, I turned to my brother. "Your wife is here with your child. What should we do?" My mother, ever the peacemaker, suggested she would take the child to a room upstairs. After guiding them upstairs, I allowed my sister-in-law to enter the house. Bobby, caught off guard by her appearance, stammered, "How did you find out where we live? Please, just go home for today." Bobby's suspicious demeanor did not go unnoticed. My elder brother stepped in, his voice heavy with disdain. "Huh, did you forget my wife's face? This is the second matter we need to discuss." The color drained from Bobby's face, a mix of confusion and fear taking hold as he mumbled, "You mean she is?" It seemed Bobby hadn't realized she was my brother's wife. In a panic, he looked like he was about to flee but was rooted to the spot. My brother, holding up evidence of the affair, confronted him. "Seems like my wife is pregnant with your child. Did you 2 plan this?" Throwing down the evidence on the table, he declared, "For me, it's divorce, nothing less." Hearing this, Doris, fearful of being caught in the scandal, blurted out, "I will pack my things and go back to my parents' house," and made a move to escape upstairs. My younger brother quickly stepped in. "We've got a truck loaded with boxes. Start packing your things right now. I'll get the boxes." Doris hesitated, asking, "Am I leaving today?" But one stern look from my brother made her relent. Meanwhile, my elder brother told his wife, "Sign the divorce papers," as he handed them to her along with a pen. Seeing the custody section assigned to my brother, She hesitated, but he firmly told her, "That's what the kids want. Your opinion doesn't matter." With tears streaming down her face, she signed the papers. "Next time, take care of the child in your belly. I won't ask for child support. In return, don't ever show your face to my kids unless they want to see you. I won't stop them when they grow up," he stated as she apologized to him on her knees. Watching this unfold, I realized the depth of pain my brother had been bearing. Then the focus shifted to me. "So, Helen, what are you going to do?" my elder brother asked. I responded without hesitation. "I choose divorce too. I want him out of my house as soon as possible." At this, Bobby dropped to his knees begging, "I don't want a divorce. Please forgive me. I beg you." He then added desperately, "Besides, it could be his child, not mine." This only solidified my decision. I had seen enough deceit and was ready to reclaim my life and my home. When my brother calmly stated, "I'm done having kids. I've had surgery to ensure that," Bobby was left utterly speechless. My brother then handed me the divorce papers and suggested, "If you want him out immediately along with Doris, have him sign these." I directed my husband to sign the papers, and without much hesitation, perhaps realizing there was no escape from the mess he'd created, he did. After he signed, I presented him and Doris with pledge documents my lawyer had prepared. These documents required them to compensate for the damages they had caused in the house, amounting to roughly $50,000, and to agree never to enter my house again. Bobby, under the stern gaze of my brother, hesitantly signed the pledge. His shoulders slumped as he began to trudge upstairs to pack his belongings. Meanwhile, my brother, with a hint of irony, mentioned, "Oh, I got a marriage license for you guys when I picked up the divorce papers." He handed it to his wife, who, without a second thought, signed it and pushed it towards Bobby. "Sign it quickly. You've messed up my life, so you have to take responsibility. I'm having this baby. You can't just walk away." With a desperate look, Bobby signed the document, sobbing, "Just do whatever you want." My brother, not yet done, pressed Bobby, "Hey, you won't say anything unless I ask, huh? Don't you have anything to say to me?" This prompted a profuse apology from Bobby, his remorse palpable as he nearly bowed to the floor. We all worked quickly to pack Bobby's and Doris's belongings into boxes, loading them onto a waiting truck, which then transported everything to their parents' house. Thus, my brief married life came to an abrupt but decisive end. As I contemplated living alone in the big house, my mother proposed selling her house to move in with my younger brother. My older brother decided to sell his house as well and move in with his 4 children. They planned to buy my house with the proceeds from selling their homes, suggesting lightheartedly, "Why not build a new house when you get married next time?" But I insisted, "I'm good with an apartment." Together, we got a dog that the kids had always wanted, and despite the house's history of unhappy memories, we were building a life full of laughter and happiness. Meanwhile, my ex-husband married my former sister-in-law 8 months later and moved in with her at his parents' house. He found himself working tirelessly to pay for the damages they caused to my house. Doris, treating her new sister-in-law like a maid, pushed her to a breaking point, causing her to lose her mental balance. Unable to tolerate seeing her daughter in such a state, Doris's mother eventually kicked her out. Desperate, Doris reached out to my ex-husband for help, but he coldly blamed her, saying, "If you hadn't moved in, we'd still be living in that mansion." Doris ended up alone, isolated, with no one on her side, a stark contrast to the new beginning and familial unity I found with my family.